Good morning, George. Thank you very much for the introduction and for the invitation to be with you. I very much regret not being able to be at Maribor physically, so I'll try to share my thoughts online. I need to try to share my screen. Is that okay?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot. So I'll try to discuss the character of, very briefly, the character of digital humanities and the changing landscape of higher education and research. And digital humanities is an area that I think is relevant and really very close to the area of cultural heritage documentation, preservation, and valorization, both tangible and intangible. So let me start with just inviting you to visit this address here, whatisdigitalhumanities.com. If you do that, you will be confronted with about 800 different answers to what is digital humanities. This means that this subject is really still looking for an identity, if I may say so. So I will just share with you the way I understand that. I understand very simply digital humanities as a place, the place where the humanities meet information technologies. It is, I think it is instructive to look a little bit at the history of the subject, how it started and how it is progressing. So it is not a very new idea. It actually started in the 1940s, 1950s with a Jesuit priest called Roberto Busa, who compiled a complete index of the works of Saint Thomas Aquinas, so that this is the Index Thomisticus, and he did that by employing computers and database technology with a generous gift by IBM, and it took him about 30 years to do that, starting in 1949. 10 years later, after he finished the index, he published it in the form of a CD-ROM in 1989. And finally, it went on the web in 2005. So in terms of publishing information, sorry, I'm experiencing. Okay, I experienced a network failure here. Is it okay still? Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you clearly.
Thank you. So another person I need to mention is Josephine Louise Miles, who's, if I'm not wrong, she was the first female professor at the full professor at the University of California, Berkeley, who really paved the way for applying quantitative and computational methods in the study of literature. Now, in the 1960s, the term humanities computing appears first, and by 1966, the field has a journal, Computers in the Humanities. In the next decade, in the middle of the next decade, an association is formed called Computer Applications and Quantitative Methods in Archaeology, which still runs perhaps one of the most prominent conferences in the area. In the middle of the 80s to the middle of the 90s, we see the emergence of the text encoding initiative as an effort to apply computational methods and encoding in the annotation of literary texts. And from the mid of the 90s and for 10 years, we see the unfolding of an effort to support the standardization, if I may call it so, of knowledge representation in the area of cultural heritage documentation, and by this way to also serve the interoperability of cultural information systems. The outcome of this is an ISO standard, the CDOC CRM ISO standard, which is a documentation ontology for cultural heritage. And the term digital humanities first appears in 2004 in the title. It appears on the title of a volume, a collective volume that is edited by Answorth, Schreibman, and Siemens, called A Companion to Digital Humanities. And this is how the term digital humanities comes about. And since then, it has stuck. Now, the key to understanding the digital humanities is, according to David Berry, to reject the idea that digital technology is invading the academy. Now, having done this very brief historical overview, let me invite you to look at the characteristic traits of the practice of digital humanities. And what this entails, we will see next. So in terms of the work practice, the new element is that the digital element in the humanities has brought teamwork as opposed to isolated scholars working alone, working from a distance, thanks to network connectivity. The teams I mentioned before become multidisciplinary rather than single disciplinary. There is now the new habit, if I may call it so, of giving credit to more than one authors, which comes as a departure from the tradition of the monograph. And similarly, the open access to publications and also to data. So these are some important changes already in the way that people work. In terms of the data sources, we know that text is the queen among the data sources, but besides text, there are other data sources such as maps, images, sounds, etc. Now, the new element with the digital is that these sources come together, accessed and, in fact, organized and appearing together in the form of multimedia. And in addition to primary data, we have the ability to employ and exploit metadata at the same time. And also, there is this new development of having data on a very large scale that can be connected together. So in terms of data sources, the blending of the different media and the large scale is the new element that the digital brings into the humanities. Then in terms of organizing knowledge, because people started using databases and exchanging data and other structured information, the new element is the element of structure as opposed to unstructured information, which is there even with unstructured data in the form of metadata. So structured data and the networking of data is the element of knowledge organization that is changing a lot of things and is definitely impacting on the way that people can use the data by employing now algorithms, and the analysis methods are enriched by using statistical and computational methods of analysis next to visual methods that have been there for a very longer time, of course, but because of the ability to use visual items on the screen in very many different ways, visual analysis has also exploded as a way of working. what people are looking for in the research. Now, because of what I mentioned before, new approaches have been enabled, and also people are now able to ask different questions. So that was expected in a sense. We've seen it in other areas happen, that because we have new tools and methods, we are now able to ask different questions and to look at older questions in different ways. There is also an enhanced capacity of public communication. And then there is one more element which is very important too. All I've talked about until now is what the digital brings to the humanities. But then the humanities give back to the digital in a sense. And this is what goes under the term reflection here. I think it is quite important that humanists, with their tradition of critical analysis, really contribute to the development of digital technology, a critical understanding of the promises and the risks of this technology. So the digital is also now not just an aid to the humanities, but also a subject of inquiry, with the humanities, engaged in studying the digital and providing policy insights. Now let's take a look at the information processes that take place in scholarly research and also in cultural documentation alike, when we are in the digital domain, that is where we are employing digital means for encoding, storing, and processing information. The steps are quite easy to grasp. We start with data acquisition, and then there are steps of curating the data, organizing them, and annotating the data. Once we have collections of data that are curated, organized, and annotated, we can do all sorts of processing. And the final outcome is to use this data to produce publications and also exhibitions. So in terms of input, the input comes from various sources: archives, collections, different web sources in the form of text, images, audio, video, maps, databases, whatever. As output, what we have is various scholarly editions and digital exhibits, narratives, games, etc. I think it is quite important to notice that this entire life cycle has something that is, all the stages in this life cycle operate on data that have a very common character. It doesn't really matter whether it is primary data, uncurated or curated, whether it is secondary data produced after the annotation or the processing, or even tertiary data, which is the outcome of publication and exhibits. We are able to have all these as bits in memory, that is, data that are stored in data stores of different kinds. And the important thing here is that because they are encoded in the ways that we encode and organize data in memories, we are able to use them in conjunction and using similar tools or even the same tools. This is a unification of the data, the metadata, the primary and the secondary data that is, I think, a unique addition that the digital has brought, and this is an important thing that we have to bear in mind and to exploit as much as we can. And in fact, it is at the foundations of the promise of what will come with the data integration, something that is really still elusive. Now, the implications of all this. the digital humanities is a field in motion. And because it is a field in motion, there are various projects that have run and others that are still active for monitoring the trends and requirements. May I mention here one important research that was published by Europeana on research requirements, a survey on the use of digital cultural heritage. It came out in 2021. There are other reports that have been published by other sources, such as the DARIA infrastructure and also in other national infrastructures. And then there are organizations such as the European Association for Digital Humanities and the Humanities Commons that are places where we can really have a good picture of the developments in the digital humanities field and how it goes about. And in terms of education in the digital humanities, there is an important course registry run jointly by the DARIA and Clarin infrastructures. Perhaps this is the most comprehensive. One remark that a very quick remark that a short remark that I'd like to make is that it is impossible not to notice that the participation in the digital humanities arena is global, but it is skewed. In terms of nationality, race, gender, and language, it leans very heavily towards the Western world, and within that, more towards the Anglo-Saxon communities and the English language. The statistics tell us that in many countries, the participation is mostly male rather than female, although this is not universal. For instance, in Greece, it is not so. In terms of research and the way that the digital is affecting this research in the humanities, let me recapitulate in 4 bullets what comes as an outcome from what we've seen before. First, the output, very importantly, we now go beyond the monograph and the journal article. In fact, in the digital humanities, they have started publishing data, just like in the sciences. Second, it is the end of silos with the emergence of multidisciplinarity, and that is, I think, a very, very important change. Third, there are new opportunities for insights due to the fact that the data scale has changed and the information is linked, and the processing abilities are far much better and wider. And all this does not come without a cost, because the tools for doing all that and for maintaining the data, etc., becomes something that is quite costly and not easy for single researchers or small groups of researchers to pay for on their own. So there is the need for common infrastructures that are used. And so we've seen the emergence of national and international research infrastructures. And this is the case in the humanities as it is in other sciences as well. And there have been also changes in higher education. There is a variety of programs that have appeared teaching or preaching digital humanities, both degree and non-degree programs, that is formal and informal education programs. A few bachelors have appeared around the world, either digital humanities or double degrees between some disciplines such as, literature or history and information science, for instance, or computer science. Then there are many master's degrees and very, very few doctoral programs that are specializing in this digital humanities field. Who offers these programs? We will see them offered by arts and humanities schools, information sciences schools, and also computer science or informatics departments. So this means that there are also different emphasis placed on these programs depending on which school offers them. Where do these programs appear? Mostly in Europe. Most degree awarding programs are in Europe. There are, of course, in North America, but there we find predominantly non-degree programs running, and also in Australia. So there is a very heavy concentration in Europe, North America, and Australia. And of course, there are programs everywhere, but very, very few compared to what happens there. These programs will often be mixed with media and culture studies, so sometimes it is difficult to separate or distinguish between them, and the language that they are taught is predominantly the English language. I would like to finish with a mandate for those DH programs that comes from what I've said before about the digital humanities. It is also a mandate that we try to serve in the master's program on digital methods for the humanities that we run in my university. The first is that the program should develop skills of applying digital methods in the humanities, but also develop critical approaches to the techno-social environments that are emerging. Third, very important, to foster interdisciplinarity. And finally, to prepare students for taking up active roles in a variety of jobs with the common characteristic of serving the digital transformation of the way of working in the humanities, in the social sciences, in the heritage domain, and education. Thank you very much for listening.
Many thanks, George, for the initially for the invitation, and Maria for the invitation to this really interesting conference, and for the extensive introduction. So I will partly omit my first section of the talk that was about me. So many thanks. It's a really interesting topics, vast, and in Tavia are really great projects. I would love to also be there, attend physically, but unfortunately I'm not able. It's not also very easy to be there, to travel to Slovenia, which I love, by the way. But finally, it's a really great honor to be included in the same session with Professor Constantopoulos. That his contribution to digital cultural heritage and humanities overall domain is really immense, and really nice to see him again. This was the first session that George very extensively and overall covered. So it's about me and my activities. The second section was about SEDCE. I'm not sure the acronym is pronounced like this. I'm saying it SEDCE. Other people say it otherwise. And some thoughts on overall the SEDCE activity, and overall this policy recommendation reporting approach. So, as George said, I'm at the Cultural Technology Department at the University of the Aegean. I coordinate the Intelligent Interaction research group, and recently, a week ago, the insane spin-off, which is Intelligent Systems and Experiences spin-off. We don't have a logo yet, so we'll probably use this Intelligent Interaction Research Group one. I'm also affiliated with NTUA and Athena Research Center. I'm the chair of the Tourism, Culture and Creative Industries Council of the National Council for Research and Technology Innovation. And recently, I'm a regular member of the General Assembly of the Hellenic Foundation for Research and innovation. So this is again very recent. I'm not sure I included it in the paragraph that George read before. And the reason I am here probably is because I'm an expert at the Commission expert group on the Common European Data Space for Cultural Heritage, or CEDCE. But some issues, some research interest domains, I'm active, and I would love to chat with you. Unfortunately, we can't do it at the coffee or lunch break or at the social dinner tonight, but perhaps we can communicate after that. Drop me a line. You can just Google me around and you'll find me. So it's a cross disciplinary domain based on intelligent systems, artificial intelligence, machine learning, semantic web, you name it, human-computer interaction, ranging from affective to more basic computing, interactive computing, and applications to the digital management of cultural heritage. So this is a more, more formal description. I'm revisiting my identification, my research identification, and trying to address three entities overall: content, meaning data and methodology and processes that are involved in representing, capturing, managing, etc. Context awareness, which is really interesting for the ubiquitous computing, the emerging ubiquitous ecosystem of framework. The ecosystem of technical and technological and methodological frameworks that are evolving and being formulating in the current computing ecosystem, and the user, the user from modeling to evaluation to interactive context. So this is my kind of attempt to revisit my identification. So to the topic, to the beyond cultural repositories. So CEDCE is an approach, and I will be critically revisiting critically discussing perhaps its attempt to go beyond a repository, because there is a cultural repository, there is a cultural data space in terms of infrastructure, at least for the European area. So, but how it all started? Why data spaces? Because the vision of the Commission is to move towards a digital transformation of the EU by 2030, in order to empower both people, citizens, businesses, governments, whatever, all that is involved in the EU. It's a really well-funded initiative. The Commission really believes in it. It's a 5 billion initiative, and includes skills from soft skills, etc., to professional skills, to public services, etc. There's also the European data strategy is the single market strategy documentation for single market for data, in order to have a cross sectors interoperability and interaction. There are also support centers, the data space support center, and the really interesting, the semantic interoperability center, which is corresponds to the data governance and interoperable Europe acts, respectively. So it's a quite well-funded and well-supported initiative. Other data spaces, apart from the cultural one, it was not initially included in the in the, let's say, basic ones. And the basic ones include skills, people, the Green Deal, environment, mobility, every day, and all the issues, health, financial, energy, agriculture, public administration. I have skills twice, but culture, tourism, and media were not initially included as a data space. So it's not a very, very strict strategy. It's evolving. So we'll also hear more about it in the future as it is being formed. So the structure of SEDCE, it's the roadmap before the structure is how we got here. There was, before 2021, there was a recommendation on the data space for cultural heritage, what we are talking about. But before that, there was also the 2011 recommendation on digitization and online accessibility of culture, and the respective expert groups on cultural heritage and digital cultural heritage, etc. Let's say our predecessors, kind of. The 2021 recommendation clearly mentions that the European data space, but in a very wide perspective, context, and it's not updated, let's say, by other initiatives and activities, such as the ex-ante impact assessment of 2022, which evaluated how the previous period was how efficient it was, and it's funded by initially a procurement that is currently being implemented of 19 partners, a big consortium led by the Europeana Foundation. In September, we had two calls on the cloud, and the European Cultural Heritage Cloud, which is a kind of a parallel initiative, but also related to cultural data. So it's and there are different DGs included in this. So really interesting to see how this will work. There were also earlier this year, 4 projects were funded that were apart from the initial procurement, the infrastructure. So 4 projects were granted, rather small projects, $1 million each, I think, which have different perspective and examine different aspects of the data space, the cloud, or whatever. And we have the early in 2024, we have upcoming calls on together on tourism and cultural heritage for the data AI pillar of the digital axis. So how SEDCE is structured? There are, of course, the 27 member states with representatives. There are explicit representatives from additional representatives from other countries that may or may not be the same as the formal, let's say, ones. There are 5 experts, me being one of them, with different expertise, and there are I think 2 or 3 organizations, mainly the Europeana Foundation, which is the basic infrastructure behind the data space for cultural heritage. The SEDCE is organized in working groups and different perspectives, either technical, more strategic, more user-oriented, different stuff there. So data governance, data and data governance, aggregation, which are closely related, as we'll see in the progress slide after that, to the current ecosystem and let's say processes and workflow that is being applied and designed. There's the 3D XR, emerging technologies, and the reuse framework. I'm involved personally in these two. There's the multilingualism working group, and one working group to unite them all, the horizontal strategic development, which also unites the SETKE working groups, but is also responsible for interaction with other ecosystems, data spaces, stakeholders, etc. So how we're doing so far? Actually, there's a really crucial meeting next month in November, where we'll all meet in person in Luxembourg. So I'll be able to tell you more after that, and I'm not sure if I should also mention how we're doing. So off the record and informally, we are doing well. The progress is, especially for the working groups that are based on existing infrastructure, meaning the Europeana. So the data governance, aggregation, multilingualism have an initial foundation, a baseline, a reference point, and they're building on that. So they had an easier task, let's say. And there's the other working groups. I'm luckily, I would say, involved in the two of them, the 3D and XR and the reuse working groups, which are more challenging because they're about higher level, not so technical or just technical aspects of the data space. They're based on emerging, meaning not fully established protocols, standards, etc. And this is a kind of a point for discussion, perhaps also later. REA representatives are also present. They were not adequately supported in terms of funding, focus, work program description, etc. More on that, on thoughts, my thoughts mainly. I'm not here as I said, I'm not officially, let's say, not officially, but I don't represent SETKE, I'm representing myself. So they are my thoughts, and initially about the whole process. The whole process of this recommendation reporting. I think it should be more shorter periods, more interactive, engaging the countries and the stakeholders, both in terms of analysis, user analysis, stakeholder analysis, the ecosystem, what we are talking, what is the current state of the art in each country, and where the goals of it can, because it's not universal. We are part of the EU, but different countries have different goals, different agendas, etc. So perhaps an EU recommendation should include all of the overset, the superset of all the requirements and the needs of the countries, and of course other stakeholders that are not country, let's say, specific. So have a shorter periods of like the 10-year period is for such an emerging. Professor Constantopoulos earlier said how the digital humanities is forming, redefined, revisited currently. So it's really dynamic area, and we should have shorter periods of both recommending, monitoring, more interactive monitoring, involving the stakeholders in the monitoring process, etc. And this is not new. We have been working on this for the past 10 years at least. And we should learn from past experiences and how to to best design and implement this. And some more, let's say, research oriented thoughts. And actually, there is a working group on reusing data. But I'm also questioning about using the data. How many systems, applications, entities are actually using the data of a current or the design data space or cloud or whatever? Are we using digital cultural heritage data apart from reusing them in terms of including more than research and education, even so not questionable about the amount of integration of the data have in research, education, etc., but also about incorporating data into experiences. It's not the same thing. Like traveling has a like a formal aspect, traveling arrangements, how you're going to get there, what train you're going to get, what flight, etc., and experiencing the travel. So tourism, for example, has both aspects, addresses both aspects. Are the cultural heritage infrastructure addressing equally the experience and the data-oriented aspects? I'm not sure, and we should recommend or at least aim to do this in the future. There are also domains which are weaker, intangible. I've been trying to get funding for intangible, and congrats on Intavia for the intangible domain for like 2 years, national and European, etc. It's not very easy. It wasn't included in the explicitly, at least in earlier work programs, etc. So we should reinforce both 3D as a technological, but this is this also is supported by other initiatives. But so we should support domains that are underrepresented or weaker, such as the intangible one, which is my favorite, let's say. And talk to others, both in terms of data spaces, like the tourism data space, the media data space, and also other external stakeholders. So these are kind of initial thoughts, meaning that we're not done yet. So after November, I would have a clearer view of where we are going and how the recommendations will look like. And hopefully we'll follow up on that. So thank you for now, and please reach out. You can just Google me around or visit ii.aegean.gr or ask George for a full contact and Maria for a full contact list, and drop me a line. So thank you, and I'm at your disposal for questions, comments, suggestions, ideas. Thank you.